Hey again, welcome back to Daily Dose of Anime Recaps. In this video, we'll be covering episodes 1 through 4 of the series The Greatest Demon Lord is Reborn as a Typical Nobody. This series story revolves around Ard Meteor, a teenage high schooler who happened to be the invincible demon lord Varvatos in his previous life. Unfortunately, being a godlike existence has several cons as well. In Varvatos' case, what he couldn't stand most was people being fearful of him 24/7, which indirectly led to his inability to make authentic friendships. After all, friends whose bodies are shivering in fear of your presence aren't truly friends, are they? That said, the wish Varvatos yearned for the most was to become just an average run-of-the-mill character, one with many decent friends up his sleeve. Back then, to turn his dream into a reality, Varvatos had cast a reincarnation spell upon himself. In such a way, the once invincible demon lord lost nearly all of his might and later ended up being reborn as a commoner centuries down the road. Truly makes one curious about what will become of the demon lord in his second life as Ard Meteor. Will he truly be able to discover loyal friends as desired? Or is our protagonist here doomed to suffer from disappointment forever, as he may yet again end up being feared by everybody else? Well, there's only one way to learn the answers. Keep watching. Way back in the past, we witnessed demon lord Varvatos sulking thanks to his miserable and boring life. As it happens, none of the others think of him as a human being anymore. Such is the price he must pay for being hailed as an invincible existence. At first, Varvatos simply wishes to let himself suffer defeat at the hands of another. In such a way, the myth about him being an immortal will vanish. Doing so will result in everybody else becoming convinced of his humanity, turning his day-to-day interactions far friendlier than before. Sad news is, among those capable of besting the demon lord Varvatos, some are dead, while the others disappeared a while ago. With the option of tasting defeat out the window, Varvatos yet again starts brooding in misery. When the loneliness finally starts to eat away at his soul and he can't take it anymore, the demon lord simply decides to reincarnate as a typical nobody, just to see how it goes. Years later, at present time, Ard Meteor is seen celebrating his 10th birthday with his perfectly normal parents. As it happens, Ard is still an admired prodigy in his second life, despite having given up most of his powers previously. The reason lies behind how the study of magic has declined in the current era. That said, although Ard would have been a perfectly average magician had he been reborn in his own era, he's now considered to be a genius, yet again, in this era of subpar magic. Anyhow, Ard's parents nudge him to make a silent wish for his birthday. As expected, the boy hopes to forge a friendship of equality with someone, rather than them being friends with him out of fear and respect. Unfortunately, making true friends turns out to be easier said than done. This is especially so for Ard, who still has the demon lord's air of haughtiness around him despite having been reborn. As a result, whether it be boys or girls, both are scared witless of Ard, calling him a freak, and then slipping away with their tails tucked between their legs. Having failed to befriend somebody time and time again, Ard becomes infuriated and starts venting his rage on poor trees in the forest. While he's at it, the boy spots Mayor Olhide, who happens to be a friend of his parents, and he's here to visit. Olhide solemnly declares how the best way to win over a friend is to be kind, sincere, and respectful. As if injected with a dose of adrenaline, Ard becomes hyperactive yet again, and runs off to make a couple of friends. Unfortunately, even the boy's kind promise to transfer half the world in their name fails to make any lasting impression. On the contrary, doing so only contributes to the outcast's weirdness, ending with Ard being isolated by his peers yet again. Having had enough, Ard disappears into the woods nearby and starts massacring the poor monster inhabitants there. Soon, he hears the shrill cry of a girl, though, and rushes towards the voice's direction ASAP. Once there, Ard bumps into an elf girl, who's about the same age as him. What's funny is how the elf girl is also venting her fury by butchering innocent monsters, same as Ard often does. The girl soon spots Ard spying on her after turning the ancient wolf opposite into ash. Feeling hesitant, Ard attempts to strike up a conversation. First, he simply compliments the girl's bravado and skill. When that doesn't work, he goes about it from a different stance by criticizing her technique and claiming how there's still lots of room for improvement. When neither of the two works, the boy simply musters up his courage and declares his request to be friends with the pointy-eared girl. Finally, the girl responds, albeit not in the way Ard wished for her to do so. Instead, due to reasons unknown, the cute little girl simply leaves after rejecting his offer in a tearful manner. Back at home, Olhide is busy discussing with Ard's parents how his daughter has stopped interacting with others after being bullied so often thanks to her elf heritage. What's sad is how she's become estranged even with Olhide, her own father, and barely says a word to him. Just then, the elf girl from the forest comes rushing into Olhide's arms. Turns out the girl, whose name is Irina, is indeed Olhide's one and only daughter. Same as Ard, she too happens to be a social outcast and suffers from isolation as a result. Just then, Ard arrives back as as well, complaining about how Olhide's trick of being kind and respectful was proven worthless and ineffective. However, he stops midway after detecting Irina, who's embracing her father Olhide at present. Ard simply declares the double encounter as an act of fate and starts chasing after Irina, madly from henceforwards. What's sad is how Irina refuses to respond to any of Ard's attempts at making friends. Instead, the girl is creeped out by his persistence and continues running away from him 24/7. A couple days later, the city is invaded by a bunch of nasty goblins. Olhide worriedly declares how his daughter is still in the forest, possibly busy venting her fury at poor little monsters there. However, both Ard's father Jack as well as the mayor Olhide are preoccupied with annihilating the enemies in town and are unable to reinforce Irina within due time. Just then, Ard swears an oath to rescue Irina and flies away in a hurry. Meanwhile, both Jack and Olhide's jaws drop to the ground, since flying is supposed to be a lost skill, one not seen for centuries at least. On the flip side, Irina is seen surrounded by a group of those wretched goblins. What's sad is how the girl has become weary of living an isolated life by now, and is therefore willing to die without displaying a speck of resistance. However, Ard doesn't let her wish come true, and simply annihilates the heckload of enemies soon after his arrival. Seeing how Irina is still distrustful, but at the same time willing to listen, Ard simply promises to be with her forever, and that he shall never abandon her no matter what. Irina finally believes Ard this time around, and in such a way, the mighty demon lord accomplishes his most desired wish of making friends at last. A few years down the road, Ard's sleep is interrupted by Irina, who suggests for them to enroll in the Academy of Magic side by side. In the next scene, we witness Ard and Irina sitting face to face with Mr. Gold, headmaster of a prestigious Academy of Magic. Gold seems quite enthusiastic when interacting with both of them. As is revealed soon after, both Irina's father, Olhide, as well as Ard's own parents, happen to be national heroes who once defeated some kind of evil god back in the day. As a result, both their noble lineages make them entitled for such a warm welcome by the principal himself. Gold soon explains how Ard has been exempted from the mandatory practical test. After all, the overpowered dude defeated dozens of goblins all alone back when he was still a kid. As such, there's absolutely no need at all to test his physical prowess. However, even Ard is required to attempt the written test, which turns out to be a bummer soon after. Simply put, having been the demon lord Varvatos in his past life, there's literally no question that could have baffled Ard in regards to magic. However, due to the declined magical wisdom in the current era, all of Ard's answers were proven academically incorrect when considered from the lens of modern-day magic arts. However, even such a pathetic result fails to restrain him from joining the academy. Turns out Ard's answers managed to surpass even the wildest magic-related hypothesis within the present era, and were considered off the charts by many. Heck, even accomplished magicians such as Headmaster Gold were able to learn a thing or two after hearing his insightful theories and debates, etc. Long story short, the headmaster starts bootlicking and flattering Ard in public. The chatty old man even publicizes Ard's noble heritage, about him being the son of Jack and Carla, the legendary mage and warrior who slew the evil god Dikeus years ago. Having enjoyed enough of the limelight in his previous life, Ard now becomes irritated at having been put on such a huge pedestal by the principal himself. As expected, a ton of fellow classmates rush over to make friends with both Ard and Irina as a consequence of Gold's over-enthusiastic introduction. Later on, both Ard and Irina's sense of justice is triggered after witnessing a helpless succubus being bullied by Elrado, an arrogant silk pants. The poor succubus, whose name is Jenny, belongs to an inferior house and status. As a result, Elrado considers her as his slave by default, resulting in the harsh and humiliating treatment. Both Ard and Irina step up for Jenny's sake, forbidding Elrado from pursuing his act of tyranny any further. The egotistic jerk, of course, isn't willing to pay any heed to reason or morality. Instead, he simply promises to stop bullying the pushover Jenny so long as Ard is able to best him in a duel. Irina seems hesitant since Elrado truly is a prodigy when it comes to magic, one who distinguished himself as a genius magician during early childhood. Just then, their homeroom teacher named Olivia barges in all of a sudden. Her arrival causes Ard's face to pale all of a sudden, since she happens to be a notable existence from his era. Out of everybody's expectations, Olivia approves the duel and even comes to monitor it in person. Later outside, Ard, of course, is concerned about Olivia figuring out his true identity as the incarnation of Varvatos. Wishing to stay low-key and avoid being confronted by her, he simply devises a plan to cast average spells only while dueling against Elrado. Once the duel begins, Ard simply pulls up an impregnable barrier to help keep all of Elrado's attacks at bay. In fact, poor Elrado is schooled by Ard throughout the entirety of the duel, and even has his many spells considered as counterfeits by Ard. Finally, Ard Ard utilizes an authentic Giga Flare spell to dominate the battlefield and defeat El Rado fair and square. Unfortunately, in the heat of the moment, he indeed forgot his plans to stay low-key, resulting in Olivia being on his tail from then on. As expected, the perceptive Olivia soon comes to Ard for an interrogation round and questions how he was able to cast double spells in the midst of a duel. Turns out, same as flying, dual spell casting is considered a lost skill in the present era. Ard, being able to accomplish such a thing, plus his lack of awareness about dual casting being a lost skill, further adds to Olivia's suspicions. Although Olivia backs off momentarily, she does promise to solve the puzzle and figure out her desired answers soon enough. On the following day, Olivia breaks the students into groups of 3, asking them to take a troll down the dungeon and slay a black wolf each. As it happens, none of the students are willing to team up with Ginny, the worthless succubus. Seeing how isolated she appears, Irina simply offers to let her join their gang instead. Afterwards, slaying black wolves is proven to be a cinch for both Ard and Irina. That's to be expected since both of them had been considered the bane of monsters since early childhood. As for Ginny, she starts considering herself useless for slowing them both down. Ard then offers to teach her a couple of magic tricks to brighten her mood, as well as boost her confidence. Unfortunately, all those years of bullying and harassment have totally eaten away at Ginny's confidence. Therefore, no matter what magic trick Ard comes up with, she sucks at them all. However, the persistent Ard is determined to tutor Ginny and make something out of her. To that end, the dude finally reveals one of his trump cards, script magic. Simply put, the aforementioned trick allows users to perform spells by absorbing mana from their surroundings. Doing so helps avoid exhaustion, as well as allowing room for consecutive attacks, since the refreshment of energy is no longer an issue. Both girls devour the technique in an enthusiastic manner, and are therefore able to master script magic soon enough. Just then, the trio accidentally falls prey to a hidden trap door, and is sent rumbling down to the end floor as a result. Turns out, the beast standing guard here is a fearsome minotaur. Both girls start to shiver after taking a peek at the brawny monster, who's about to collect their skulls any time now. However, Ard remains unfazed by the beast's might, and simply utilizes him as a tool to further demonstrate the effectiveness of script magic. In the end, he even nudges Ginny to land the finishing blow, thus allowing her confidence to skyrocket all of a sudden. Back in class, Ard's gang of 3 delivers the minotaur horn they collected previously. The dude lies about the 3 of them barely having managed to slay the beast, all for the sake of avoiding Olivia's suspicions. The loudmouth El Rado chimes in by declaring Ard as a scaredy cat, one who prefers hiding behind the skirts of women in perilous situations. This engages Ginny, who just won't allow others to insult Ard, her tutor, as well as her growing love interest. As a result, she soon lands a smack on the rascal's face, shoving him aside. Irina joins in on the fun by dumping a wastebasket on the poor fellow's head. Things go south when Olivia instructs Ard to tag along for a private chat. The two soon reach Gold's office, who requests for Ard to participate in the upcoming school tournament. Hearing that, Ard instantly realizes how the crooked headmaster wishes to garner more funds by having him display his brilliance on stage. Not that he isn't willing to help, but actively flaunting his skills is something Ard isn't fond of, and therefore usually tends to avoid doing so. Olivia intervenes just then, claiming how an acquaintance of hers used to say the same, about how being ostentatious goes against his principles and all. Alas, said person reincarnated without asking for her consent, leading to her still bearing a grudge after all these years. Knowing that Olivia's on his tail, Ard instantly excuses himself and leaves after stating how he shall contemplate the offer a while longer. Once outside, he's approached by Ginny, who suggests they go on a date together. Irina chimes in too, wishing to accompany Ard for a date as well. Interestingly, Ginny doesn't object and even points out how monopolizing Ard isn't her end goal. Heck, the succubus girl even suggests for Ard to build up his own personal harem, as doing so would make him look even cooler. Meanwhile, Irina freaks out at the mere idea of her childhood bestie building a harem. With her cheeks blushing red, the elf girl flat out rejects Ginny's sincere advice. Later, the trio visits a nearby cinema and watch a replay of Demon Lord Varvatos' life. Now aware how the reincarnated Varvatos is sitting right next to them, both girls continue to admire the former Demon Lord's miraculous achievements. As for Ard himself, the guy feels absurd at how unrealistic and lame the show is when compared to true events from his past. Later on outside, Ard happens to eavesdrop upon a couple of cloaked men as they plan to harm the queen. Becoming suspicious, Ard starts shadowing them all the way down a tunnel. Soon, he discovers a giant magic circle and figures out the status quo ASAP. Turns out he had been duped, with the queen's safety used as bait to lead him down here. Just then, a heckload of cloaked men surround surround Ard and the two girls by his side. What's more, their leader even activates the gigantic magic circle to set Ard ablaze. Expecting to witness Ard burn into ashes, the leader is now given a fright once Ard escapes unscathed and even breaks the magic circle. Next up, he performs a clean sweep against the enemy, by the end of which only their leader is left alive. Feeling cornered and out of options, the said leader now transforms into his true self as a demon. He then escapes all the way outside, not expecting Ard to follow since humans can't fly. Sadly for him, Ard isn't just another typical human being, but is rather the reincarnated Varvatos. That said, he quickly casts a gravity spell upon himself and follows in the demon's shoes all the way outside. Once there, he prevents the demon from taking a little girl hostage by simply replacing said girl with an illusion. Finally, at the end of his rope, the demon meets his demise at Ard's hand. The event makes Ard's name resound throughout the kingdom and even has him invited by the queen. The young queen, named Rosa, first jokes about marrying Ard as his reward. Soon, she becomes serious though and elevates his status to that of a Pentagon-class wizard. Ard interjects just then, wishing for her to increase the Academy's budget instead of promoting him to Pentagon class. On the flip side, Rosa is won over by Ard's practice of self-denial as well as his humility. In the end, she increases the school budget as he requested, besides also elevating his status. Such a decision rescues Ard from the trouble of having to show off his skills at the tournament. There is one condition though, which is for both Ard and Irina to join the Queen's Shadow, a group devoted to safeguarding the Queen even with their lives at stake. Afterwards, we witness another group of cloaked figures discussing how their previous plan was ruined thanks to Ard. Despite the past failure, the mysterious group continues conspiring as they're confident of their eventual victory. A couple of days after the meetup with the Queen, Ard is approached by another random female student wishing to seduce him into becoming her boyfriend. Thankfully, Irina arrives within due time, rescuing Ard from any further harassment. Some distance away, Gold is busy having a discussion with Jessica, another of the Academy's teachers. Gold simply wishes to have Ard assume the role of a teacher at the Academy. After all, being a student despite possessing such magical prowess is truly hilarious. What troubles Gold is how Ard refuses to become a tutor at the Academy no matter what method is used to coax him. Hearing that, Jessica takes it upon her shoulders to convince Ard into becoming a mentor at the Academy. Later that night, Ginny sneaks into Ard's bedroom, hoping to steal his first time with a woman. Things don't go as planned though, since Irina barges in all of a sudden and becomes flabbergasted at the sight of Ard nearly having lost his virginity to the succubus. Up next, Ard has his head smacked by a dozen different items thrown by the infuriated Irina. The tension keeps building until the two girls fall out, at odds with each other, both hoping to win over Ard's affection. One of them suggests conducting a proper duel to decide matters once and for all. Just then, Ard intervenes before the matter escalates and scolds them both for going overboard. As expected, the dude is definitely unwilling to let his girls quarrel amongst themselves. Unfortunately, Jessica arrives out of the blue just then, suggesting how both Ginny and Irina should settle their differences in the upcoming tournament. The cunning teacher is finally able to have her own way after claiming how Ard has a chance of becoming an instructor so long as the two of them participate. Hearing that, the two girls instantly agree to the duel, all while fantasizing about Ard's cool look in an instructor's uniform. On the day of the tournament, Irina's father, Olhide, as well as Ard's parents, arrive to speculate as well. A bunch of duels pass by, until it's finally Irina's turn to come on stage. The elf girl finds it troublesome to counter her opponent at first. Very soon though, she starts controlling the battle's tempo, and eventually defeats her opponent after utilizing the script magic taught to her by Ard himself. Ginny offers a similarly astounding performance until at last, both girls reach the finals and stand face to face in the arena, as predicted. Unfortunately, the victor between both of these girls remains undecided, since a heckload of demons previously disguised as normal folk now start rampaging inside the stadium. Jessica hurriedly informs both Ard and Olivia about how outside the arena is currently being plagued by demons as well. In the meantime, both Ginny and Irina team up together to fend off against the horde of enemies. Unfortunately, the two girls reach a deadlock when faced with an unusual crystallized golem and are about to face defeat in a matter of minutes. Thankfully, Irina's father, Olhide, intervenes in time though, rescuing both girls from their plight by annihilating the crystallized golem. Unfortunately, things go south once Jessica appears out of the blue and pierces Olhide's chest with her sword. By now, it becomes clear how Jessica deliberately misled both Ard and Olivia away from the arena to avoid any reinforcements from reaching Irina. Yep, her as well, as the many demons' target had been Irina all along. Jessica then throws away her disguise as a teacher, morphing into her true form as Elzard, frenzied king of dragons. Despite having a chance to slip away and save her own neck, Ginny Jenny instead chooses to take a stand for her friend Irina's sake. As a result, both girls confront Elzard side by side. Alas, despite having teamed up, the duo is defeated in a matter of seconds. Feeling despair, Irina volunteers to accompany Elzard willingly, so long as she would spare her friend Jenny's life. Elzard agrees, resulting in her departure with Irina as her captive soon after. This wraps up the episode's end, and we're left pondering several mysteries. First of all, why would Elzard trouble herself to pose as a teacher, deceive a heckload of people, and even make enemies out of Ard and the rest, all for the sake of Irina alone? Secondly, how long will it take Olivia to figure out Ard's identity as her orphan brother, who chose to reincarnate innumerable years ago? That's all for now. We'll surely discover the answers within the next couple of episodes of The Greatest Demon Lord is Reborn as a typical nobody. And in case you're a subscriber with notifications enabled, you'll learn as well soon enough.